Did Yermak, Budanov, and Zaluzhny conspire to overthrow Zelensky? An incredible fake from Russia. Pokrovsk is on the verge of encirclement. A massive leak of defense information. A hacker attack was carried out in France. Russia is building shelters at air bases near the border with Ukraine. And the GUR has obtained new evidence of Russians abducting Ukrainian children from temporarily occupied territories. And the US has warned Beijing about a 100% tariff on the purchase of Russian oil. Hello, my name is Yulia Kokan, and right now, here are the main stories. But first, please like this video if you support Ukraine and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose touch with you here on YouTube. Another day has passed on the front lines. The Pokrovsk direction remains the hottest spot. There, the Russians are very active and are constantly trying to enter the city. Our defense forces continue to eliminate enemy Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups in Pokrovsk.
The defense forces of Ukraine continue to eliminate Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups in Pokrovsk. The first public report of Russians entering the city appeared on July 21st. Since then, the elimination of these sabotage and reconnaissance groups has been ongoing. Not all groups have been found yet.
But the sabotage and reconnaissance groups are not the worst part, as there is a threat of the city being encircled.
Over the past 3 months, the Russian advance along the Pokrovsk-Kostiantynivka highway has stretched into a salient more than 10 kilometers long, which now forms the eastern pincer aimed at encircling 2 important cities at once, Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad. Fighting has been ongoing for several days at the mine near Rodinske. The first group of enemy forces has also entered the urban area of Rodinske. Russian troops are pushing into the eastern part of Chervony Lyman near Rodinske and attacking the mine between Novoekonomichin and Mirnohrad.
In addition, the occupiers are trying to cut off the main supply road for Ukrainian forces in the Pokrovsk direction, which runs from Dobropilya to Pokrovsk.
We can see that the enemy continues to build on the successes they are achieving on the eastern flank. This is aimed both at capturing the city of Pokrovsk directly from the eastern flank and at cutting off the key logistical routes into the city.
According to deep state analysts, the Russians are now only about 7 kilometers away from it. But as the military say, the situation is now different, and the Russians have already been spotted less than 1.5 kilometers from the road. The plans of the Russians are also confirmed by a soldier with the call sign Mochnoy.
Overall, the Russians' objective remains unchanged: to encircle the city from 3 sides, cut off roads and logistical routes or isolate the city, and then gradually tighten the noose and enter Pokrovsk itself, not through a massive frontal assault, but by means of attrition and maneuvering.
Meanwhile, MP Mariana Bezula writes that the enemy has already entered Pokrovsk. The military has not yet confirmed this information, but they are reporting on the actions of sabotage and reconnaissance groups. In any case, the situation in this direction is close to critical.
I don't know whether they've entered the outskirts of Pokrovsk yet or not, but the situation around the city is, to put it mildly, tense. I think everything is clear from the map anyway. While everyone was caught up in the commotion around the administrative border with Dnipropetrovsk region, the enemy formed a large salient that threatens both the Pokrovsk and Kostiantynivka directions.
The enemy is also advancing toward the Dnipropetrovsk region. This concerns the village of Malivka. Well, the enemy is pressing in Donetsk and Zaporizhia regions as well.
The enemy has advanced near Razin, Timirivka, Malivka, Oleksandrorad, and in Yablunivka.
The enemy is also active in the Kherson direction. There, according to the spokesperson for the defense forces of the south, Vladislav Voloshin, the Russians are creating a so-called death zone.
In general, the enemy is trying to create such a death zone along the line of contact in our rear, in the Kherson and Zaporizhia directions, so that there are as few buildings, people, and in general structures as possible on the coast where defenses could be held. That is, anything that approaches our positions, anything that gets close to the Dnipro, the enemy tries to hit with FPV drones and artillery.
The armed forces of Ukraine, despite the fact that it is becoming more difficult, continue to hold the defense and eliminate the occupiers. In the Sumy region, our defenders are using a new tactic of FPV drone ambushes on fiber optic cables. Here's what it looks like. They're also giving the occupiers a hard time in the south. The Crimean division of the Security Service of Ukraine and the defense forces eliminated occupiers on the Kinburn Spit. Our forces also carried out operations on the Tendrivska Spit. On the night of July 28th, Ukrainian scouts landed there and eliminated an enemy position along with its personnel, electronic warfare complex, and radar station. Let's thank our defenders, both men and women. They are doing incredible things. The USA, Great Britain, the Alps, and a coup d'etat in Ukraine. These things might seem barely connected, but Russian fake news creators have done their best and crafted a brilliant fairy tale. Russian media, one after another, started spreading the news that a meeting supposedly took place in the Alps between representatives of the US and the UK, the head of the presidential office, Andriy Yermak, the head of the main intelligence directorate, Kirilo Budanov, and the former commander-in-chief, Valery Zaluzhny. And they allegedly gathered to discuss replacing Zelensky. And Zaluzhny was supposedly being prepared to take his place. By the way, the Russians are telling this story with reference to their own foreign intelligence. Well, our intelligence says that all of this is, to put it mildly, a lie.
Slapped together on the knee of Sergei Narishkin and branded by the Foreign Intelligence Service of the aggressor state, Russia. The Trump card aims to increase social tension in Ukraine, sow distrust within Ukraine's military and political leadership, shift public attention from the war to the topic of elections, provoke discord, and reduce our country's ability to offer armed resistance to the Russian occupiers.
Well, come on, it sounds like a joke. One day in the Alps, representatives from the US, the UK, Budanov, Yermak, and Zaluzhny get together. First of all, the stupidity of this fake is off the charts. Secondly, Russian propagandists are repeating themselves. I don't even know how to comment on this, but it made me smile. The confession of volunteer and blogger Serhiy Sternenko.
By the way, in the Alps, at Hitler's secret base, there was a secret meeting of the Masonic Banderite Lodge to discuss the third Ukrainian hetmanate. The participants of the Congress unanimously elected SpongeBob as the new ataman.
And what do you think of this fairy tale from the Kremlin? Leave your comments. A massive leak of defense information. A hacker attack was carried out in France. Targeted. Source code of combat systems, software for nuclear submarine weapons, internal emails, manuals, and network data. All this information ended up online as a result of the cyber attack.
The hackers published 30 gigabytes of information on an online forum, which they claim relates to the combat management system of submarines and frigates of the Navy, and stated that they possess 1 terabyte of data.
It is believed that the hacker Neferpido is behind the attack. Naval, the company that was attacked, says it did not notice any intrusion into its systems. However, given the seriousness of the hacker's claims, it has contacted law enforcement. Interestingly, Naval is a state-owned company. The French Ministry of Defense has refused to comment. And while the hacker threatens to release even more secret data online, including information about the security of France's nuclear weapons, in Russia, they are already hyping up their own nukes as well. However, the threats are not directed at France, but, as always, at Ukraine. The foul-mouthed propagandist Vladimir Solovyov says that a nuclear weapon should be tested at the Yavoriv training ground in the Lviv region.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
I would actually already have that nuclear weapon put on standby and conduct a test, for example, at the Yavoriv training ground.
You could? No. At Yavoriv?
No, it should be exactly at Yavoriv. The Yavoriv training ground is perfect for nuclear testing.
Yavoriv. The Yavoriv training ground wasn't even designated for nuclear testing in the Soviet Union. No, I said.
That's where they train the Ukranazis. So we'll calculate the windrows, see where the wind is blowing. Well, so that it goes toward Poland.
There are plenty of places, so to speak, plenty of places on this world map that wouldn't be missed.
But right now, I especially wouldn't miss Lviv. I believe that Lviv should be wiped off the face of the earth.
In short, nothing new. Ukraine's European allies are planning to appeal to the European Commission for long-term loans to purchase weapons for Kyiv and to modernize their own armies. This was reported by Politico. EU countries are considering joining a new loan scheme under the REARM Europe program and the European Security Assistance Mechanism, which provides for up to 150 billion euros in loans. Among those interested are Belgium, Bulgaria, Cyprus, Czechia, Estonia, Spain, Finland, Hungary, and Lithuania. France is also likely to join the program, while Germany, Sweden, and the Netherlands do not plan to apply. Participation in the scheme will allow countries to receive preferential loans for up to 45 years, with advance payments of up to 15%. Even states that do not participate in the program will be able to take part in joint procurements to reduce the cost of arms supplies. And what do you think about this news? Share your thoughts in the comments. Russia is building shelters at air bases near the border with Ukraine. British intelligence has published satellite images showing that Russia has begun constructing protected shelters for aircraft at airfields located near the Russian-Ukrainian border. This was reported on Tuesday, July 29th, by the UK Ministry of Defence on social network X, citing intelligence data.
In response to numerous successful strikes by Ukrainian unmanned aerial systems, Russia has launched a program to protect vulnerable aircraft at several airfields.
It is noted that this concerns the airfields Milarovo, Kursk-Vostokny, and Gvardeyske. The images show that the shelters consist of a domed roof, thick blast-resistant doors, and are covered with earth for additional protection against strikes. The Milarovo airbase is located approximately 17 kilometers east of the Russian-Ukrainian border and was last attacked by Ukraine on July 22, 2025. In addition to shelters for aircraft, the construction of 8 new ground shelters, ready for use, has almost been completed at the base, according to the UK Ministry of Defence. And what do you think the Russians are actually planning? The main intelligence directorate has reported that it has obtained new evidence of the abduction of Ukrainian children by Russians from temporarily occupied territories.
As part of a large-scale cyber operation, intelligence officers gained access to the servers of the so-called Government of Crimea. These resources contain documentation confirming the forced relocation of children from the temporarily occupied territories of Kherson, Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk regions of Ukraine.
It is noted that GOR specialists gained access to several thousand lists of deported children, as well as profiles on abducted children who were left without guardianship, illegal decisions appointing new guardians for abducted orphans from among Russian citizens, and the addresses of new places of residence and settlement for the abducted Ukrainian children. According to intelligence representative Andriy Yusov, thousands of files containing invaluable information for justice about the abduction of Ukrainian children have already been handed over to law enforcement agencies.
The information obtained will make it possible to find and bring home the abducted children, as well as to punish those involved in this crime.
Well, we are awaiting the return of our Ukrainian children to their homeland and hope that those responsible and involved in this crime will be punished. The United States has warned China about 100% tariffs for purchasing Russian oil. Yes, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warned Chinese officials that continuing to purchase Russian oil under sanctions would result in the imposition of high tariffs. His words are quoted by Reuters. Following 2 days of trade talks between the U.S. and China in Stockholm, Bessent expressed the United States' dissatisfaction with China's continued purchases of Iranian oil, which are subject to sanctions, as well as the sale to Russia of dual-use goods worth more than $15 billion, which contributes to Moscow's war against Ukraine. Bessent stated that U.S. congressional legislation, which allows Trump to impose tariffs of up to 500% on countries purchasing Russian oil subject to sanctions, could compel U.S. allies to adopt similar measures in order to deprive Russia of energy revenues.
Therefore, I think that everyone who buys Russian oil subject to sanctions should be prepared for this. The Chinese take their sovereignty extremely seriously. We have no intention of encroaching on it, so they prefer to pay a 100% tariff.
The American minister also said that he warned his colleague, Vice Premier He Lifeng, that if China continues to sell goods to Russia that are ultimately used for weapons production, it will harm its efforts to establish trade relations with Europe.
I pointed out to them that this seriously damages their image in Europe, as they are contributing to the war on Europe's border.
U.S. President Donald Trump suggested that Ukrainians who have fled the war may be allowed to stay in the United States until the fighting ends. This was reported on the social network X. The media write that one of the journalists asked Trump whether he would allow Ukrainians in the U.S. to stay in the country until the end of the full-scale Russian war, to which he responded affirmatively.
I think so. A lot of people from Ukraine have come to us, and we are working with them.
How do you assess Trump's statements? Share your thoughts in the comments. Many European countries have joined a joint statement calling to support the recognition of the state of Palestine. The text of the document was distributed by the French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot. The first signatories of the joint statement on the recognition of Palestine were France, Finland, Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Luxembourg, Slovenia, Malta, Andorra, San Marino, Norway, Iceland, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. The introductory part of the statement condemns the terrorist attack by Hamas on Israel on October 7, 2023. It immediately expresses concern about the current humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. They call for the release of hostages, a cessation of hostilities, and unimpeded access for aid. The signatories also welcomed the commitments expressed by the head of the Palestinian Authority on June 10th.
Before the meeting of heads of state and government, which took place during the 80th session of the UN General Assembly in September 2025, we, the ministers of the aforementioned countries, had already recognized, expressed, or are expressing the readiness or positive considerations of our countries regarding the recognition of the State of Palestine, which is an important step toward a two-state solution, and we call on other countries to join this appeal.
They also expressed their willingness to work on a future model for the Gaza Strip, which would include its reconstruction, the disarmament of the Hamas group, and its exclusion from the political governance of the Palestinians. In addition, the ministers are calling on countries that have not yet done so to establish normal relations with Israel. Do you support Europe's decision to back the recognition of Palestine? Let us know in the comments. A parliamentary walkout in Geneva. During the speech by the chairwoman of the Federation Council of Russia, Valentina Matviyenko, at the World Conference of Speakers of Parliament in Geneva, dozens of delegations from various countries left the hall in protest against the representative of the aggressor state. The incident was reported by conference participant and deputy speaker of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, Olena Kondratyuk.
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank you, my fellow speakers, and the President. A walkout was staged during Matviyenko's speech at the World Conference of Speakers of Parliament in Geneva. I am proud of all our partners and colleagues. This is a protest against the aggressor. This is a great show of support for the people of Ukraine. Thank you sincerely. I even have tears in my eyes. So many colleagues are supporting us. We are not alone. Glory to Ukraine.
According to her, representatives of the parliaments of European, North American, and Asian countries firmly expressed their position by leaving the hall during Matviyenko's speech, who embodies the political leadership of the state waging a bloody war against Ukraine. This act became a vivid demonstration of international solidarity with the Ukrainian people and a condemnation of aggression from the Kremlin. Like this video to support what we do, and be sure to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss our next episodes. See you soon!